You got alcohol delivered with Woolies?
Yeah.
Is that an option?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know about this?
Like,
No.
you just need your ID, and I was like, ID go. And he was like,
Yeah, I discovered this at the end of the last lockdown, is that you can do, like, delivery from BWS.
yeah.
And I was like,
it's
I'm so glad I
30%
discovered this at the end of lockdown.
Yeah.
So the
Sorry,
police
so
will
do I.
find out.
Hmm?
The police will have a law against it in no time. But I just wanted to say, where's the mic? We should say. I'd like to begin by apologising for my outburst at the end of the last episode. The stress was getting to me of my wonderful life, my beautiful family. And I've went out and we've passed into the afternoon session of recording. So I've got this beautiful, not champagne, for us all to have. Would you like a glass, Jack?
Please.
Sim?
Yes, please.
All right, come on. This champagne podcasting here.
Let them eat champagne.
Oh, look at that. Wonderful. All right. Quickly summarise maybe what we did on the last pod.
That's
Is
beautiful.
that enough?
Beautiful.
Can we hand it over in a fun way?
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we were arguing about reason before
Sim,
you.
you got to get out of here. Women are not permitted to know the secrets
That's all right.
of the
I'll walk
faith.
away. Thank you for the
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. We were speaking of reason. It was cha-cha-cha.
Jimmy, can I get you to sit more central?
That's good for the knee, actually. My knee has become... Is that... How's that look?
Central is more my thing. Now you're too much, but yeah, that's the...
Central, not sensual.
I can't stop being sensual. We're going to get off the first page of this episode.
We should get
I
off
believe.
first page. So we did, what is the plan of God for man?
Yep.
The plan of God is that we're happy in heaven forever. Great. Why does man have a desire for God? Well, because we're made by him. And is it possible? How is it possible to know God through the light of only human reason? By looking at the world around us and by looking at ourselves, we can sort of abstract through reason up to there being a God.
Look, I think that's the first one where that's not a faith claim, because obviously there are world religions, and we can point to that and go, people did do this with the knowledge that they had at the time, and these are conclusions that they came to.
Yeah.
I think the early ones are declarations about human nature that it's very hard to do.
Well,
from
they're
a
first
historical
principles. Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah.
It is a first principle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is also a first principle because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you need the principle of reason to sort of like, to say.
Do we believe in reason?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we believe reason exists?
Yeah.
And can lead you to conclusions?
Yes, yeah. And that it can lead you to even excellent conclusions, like there is a God. Now, that doesn't mean that you can come to know Jesus Christ or the Trinity through reason alone.
Now, is this the next point?
No.
Number 4?
Oh, well, not really, but we'll move on.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
we
yeah.
should. We should. I think that's a good place to...
Yeah.
I mean, look, intrinsically, I want to lash back and say, like, we have a monkey brain that's evolved, and this is how, like, and it's evolved to, like, experience the world and survive, but not to experience reality from an objective point of view.
Speak for yourself, man. I don't have no monkey brain.
I feel like we've all got a monkey brain.
No, well, I mean, yeah, this is the sort of Darwinian evolutionary point of view.
Yeah.
This is not the church's point of view, right? Like, because you have a rational soul, and we'll get to what a soul is and what that means to have a rational one later. But
What are we meaning by rational? Like,
you are able to reason, right? Like, and that's what's distinct about us from the rest of creation, the visible creation.
by reason we mean, like, apply logic, tell the truth of a statement, say which statements are
Ask a question, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is my life?
and
right? Like,
understand the question and the answer.
a dog cannot do that. A dolphin cannot do that, right? Like a rat cannot do that. A
I feel
plant.
like some
cannot do that.
monkeys can probably sign something that seems like a question. You know, like they've always got a monkey talking about it.
I mean, it depends on how far we want to go into this. Yes,
Why
like
do I suffer? He's
dolphins can be
little
taught.
orangutan going, why am I a prostitute? What is my life?
Dolphins can be taught language,
Yeah.
right? Like, so there is a way in which they can be made rational by the intervention of human beings, right?
But that they don't intrinsically have this
No,
with each other.
because they are not rational
Yeah.
animals.
When we're imparting...
Yeah, we make creation better because we are the pinnacle of creation.
Nice.
Which again we'll get to
All right.
as we go.
Could we improve creation to the point where they also had souls? Could we get the
No,
monkeys
you
right
can't.
and tight?
You can't change their nature. That's who they are.
But through selective breeding, giving them sentience?
We make dogs. We made dogs from
did make
wolves.
dogs,
Yeah, yeah.
So we could make a monkey that had trousers. We're getting off the point. Let us, all right. Is the light of reason is a lovely little poetic way to phrase that.
Yes, it is.
Is the light of reason alone sufficient to know the mystery of God?
What an excellent question, Jimmy. And the answer is in coming to a knowledge of God by the light of reason alone, man experiences many difficulties, as we've been discussing. Indeed, on his own, he is unable to enter into the intimacy of the divine mystery. This is why he stands in need of being enlightened by God's revelation, not only about those things that exceed his understanding, but also about those religious and moral truths which of themselves are not beyond the grasp of human reason, so that even in the present condition of the human race, they can be known by all with ease, with firm certainty, and with no admixture of error. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So yeah, there's the light of reason, there's the light of faith. And it's by these two lights that we know the world, that we know who we are, that we know God. And they are complementary, right? They're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, there are things about our lives and the moral universe which we live that we can know by reason alone. But there's more that we can't, right? There are the truths of the faith. But also, even those things that could be discovered by reason alone are not necessarily going to be discovered by everyone in the same way at the same time. Which is why we have
conclusions in different places.
Right. Which is why God has revealed moral laws as well, right? Like, because he's sort of saying, well, like, so you don't have to do the work. I'm telling you, don't kill people, right? Like you would figure it out.
You can reason your way to killing people.
I mean, you can, yeah. Like, but exactly, because reason is not sufficient by itself, right? Like, reason alone cannot do all the things that makes you fully who you are.
Well, we would talk about hubris and people thinking they've got all the answers, and 22-year-olds who are really certain of their worldview. You're proceeding from, you don't have full information about what it is that there are unknown unknowns. There are some Yohari window things that are happening here.
Yeah.
And we're saying that faith, which is wisdom, through God and religion, that's what we're having faith in. I mean, you can also have the light of faith and people have faith in terrible things. We need to open up this young virgin and kill her in the town square so that there's a good harvest next year. I mean, that was taken on faith by the Aztecs.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, yes,
Maybe
it was.
Mayans,
Yeah,
I don't know. Some South American people were doing that.
Yeah, exactly. But but it's also, they would have had, I mean, I don't know too much about Mayan or Aztec culture or whatever, but I'm assuming they did have...
Or should we say the Carthaginians then?
That's right. Okay. I'm assuming they did have a prohibition on murder as an everyday sort of thing, right? There were just exceptions to that rule, right?
Yeah.
And the exceptions were like religious in nature for them.
Yes.
Because they did not have the light of faith to enlighten them that actually there aren't really exceptions to this rule, right?
I mean, they felt like they had the light of faith.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I'm sure
I mean, they wouldn't have used that word necessarily, but there were religious. They had tradition. A tradition had been handed down to them, which they had received.
Yeah, but from where?
Satan in a cave. Sure.
Yeah,
But like
Pan. Yeah.
who are we to?
Who are we to judge?
No, like who are we to say that we have the one truth?
Yeah, I mean, look, we do get, again, I don't want to preempt
All right, we don't want to preempt.
No, look, yeah, I think these are all good questions, and something I do when I do the catechism with people is I sort of say, yeah, like, I'm not going to answer all the questions, because otherwise you do everything before you get to it, right? And it's like, well, yeah, let's come back to that.
Yes.
And if you're not satisfied with that answer when we do eventually get to it, then I'm happy to circle back around.
Isn't this it's about perspective, right?
Yeah.
And if you're seeing it from a certain angle, things are not problematic.
Yeah.
But it's work to get.
So what we're doing now is we're putting the building blocks down, right?
Yeah.
We're doing the really basic things: God, man, sin, right?
Yes.
Like these are the things you have to understand: God, man, and the rupture between the two.
Yes.
We are separated from God, and we're going to get to this.
Well, I won't
next.
slow you down. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
How can we speak about God?
Right.
That's number 5.
By taking as our starting point the perfections of man and of other creatures, which are a reflection, albeit a limited one, of the infinite perfection of God, we're able to speak about God with all people. We must, however, continually purify our language insofar as it is image-bound and imperfect, realizing that we can never fully express the infinite mystery of God. So,
What are the perfections of man?
well, so for example, right, you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
You have 3 kids.
One of the best. I'm a perfect daddy.
I don't like when you say
I lost
daddy.
my temper. I really. Well, at the end of the last podcast, I was well aware that there was a perfect way to respond to the tribulation on the telephone that I
Sure.
was copying, and that I did not live up to it. So, in that sense, yeah, I saw that there was a perfection of man,
Yeah.
and I did not achieve it.
Right. So there are perfections of like, you know, you're a father, you can be a good or a bad father, right? You can do it to a greater or lesser degree.
Yes.
And so in that perfection, you can say, oh, my dad's really good. He's a really good dad. And by that image of fatherhood, I can come to know something about God.
So we're talking about Platonic ideals here.
Sort of, yeah.
Well, Platonic ideals are talking about this.
That's
Is
better.
that better? Is that
I like that.
Is that
yeah,
more
yeah.
gracious?
Yeah.
That because there is a perfect. We sense somehow.
Yes.
That when things are lacking, and
Yeah.
there's a perfect form they should take.
Yeah.
Like there's one of my bosses, Samantha, although she hates being called this, she has this blog, Perfect Forms, and she's trying to find the perfect version of every
Sure.
thing. Like, what's the perfect choc chip cookie?
Yeah,
What's
sure.
the actual right way to do
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
the and so in even something as small as a butter,
Yeah.
that
I'll-
it cries out for the one true butter.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, exactly, right? But so we can speak about God using these things in a way, right? Like, so we can say, by analogy, God is like these things. But these are imperfect images,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Yeah.
like, for example, Thomas Aquinas has, he starts with, I can't remember the Greek term, it's like apiothesis or something, I can't remember. I mispronounced that. Sorry to all the theologians out there. It's negative theology, right? He says, we can only speak about God by what he is not, right? Like, God is not mortal. God is not finite. God is not a creature, you know? So it's like, but by saying the things that we know that God is not,
God is immortal.
we
God
actually
is
come to
infinite.
these positive things about what we can know about God by our reason.
But the things that we then know about God are things that we don't understand. Like, our brains cannot appreciate infinity.
Right. So, and it says this, right? Like, by taking as our starting point the perfections of man and of other creatures, which are a reflection,
Albeit a limited one.
of the imperfection of God, we're able to speak about God with all people. We must, however, continue to purify our language insofar as image-bound and imperfect, realizing that we can never fully express the infinite mystery of God.
But we can keep trying.
And we should, you know? Yeah.
But this is what are the other Chinese religion? That's not is it the Tao? I'm thinking
Taoism,
of?
yeah.
But they're like, that which can be said of the Tao is not the Tao.
Yeah. I mean, well,
Corey White is always saying that.
there was actually, I can't remember who said that. Some theologian in the Middle Ages, I think, said something similar, right? Like, if you think,
rest is silence? Is this what that means?
probably,
Okay.
yeah. If you think you've come to if you think you understand what God is or who God is,
Yeah.
you have failed to understand,
Yeah.
right? Like,
You've got to have humility.
yeah,
Which is not to say that it's not worth trying.
No.
Because it's good fun to try.
right. So, and we're going to hit
And
it.
it's indeed our purpose to find it.
Yes.
Even though that's impossible.
Well, it's not.
Setting up a big challenge here at the start.
Well, so yeah, I think it's important to describe what we mean when we say mystery, right? So when the church says mystery in the Catechism,
Yeah.
I think the thing that drops into our mind is like,
Someone has been murdered in a basement.
exactly, yeah. Well, it's sort of something unknowable almost, right? Like, like we have to discover the thing, right? But there's like we're veiled.
Well, yeah, like a mystery story is always about answering the
Yeah,
mystery.
yeah.
But when we are talking about mysteries, these are things that are perpetually not
Well,
solvable in this life.
Well, we're saying that we don't have the capacity to apprehend God fully in who He is, right? But what a mystery is it's something you can enter more deeply in and come to a fuller understanding of always, right? Because we are limited and God is not, we can always enter more deeply into that mystery of who God is, right? We can always come to know more.
So some mysteries, like, when they do in the English Mass, they go, the mystery of faith. And it's quite lame. So
Yes,
I didn't grow up with it. So for some people, probably very beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's the way they say it too. The mystery. What is that about? Is it the mystery that we have faith? Is it the mystery, like...
I think it's a bit of a red herring.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's a bit of a
When we say
tangent.
the mysteries...
Yeah.
And there are a lot of mysteries. The sorrowful mysteries, the joyful mysteries.
Yeah.
What are we saying a mystery is?
So we're saying it's something that, like, we don't know fully, but we can come to know more deeply.
Okay, so an example might be...
Yeah.
What's the first sorrowful mystery?
First sorrowful mystery is the. Oh man, put me on the spot there.
They're Catholics.
We are terrible Catholics.
I usually just pray the rosary and think about myself.
No,
the
first sorrowful mystery is the scourging of the pillar.
Oh
No, that's the second one.
No, it's deeper.
Scourging,
Sam, do you
crowning.
want to bring that up?
Scourging, crowning, receives his cross, crucifixion. That's the second, third, fourth, and fifth. We should cut this.
The judgment is not
This
a
is terrible.
sorrowful mystery?
Agony in the garden. Agony in the garden.
garden.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so we don't
Great
really-
example.
We don't understand what is happening in the agony of the garden.
Not completely.
Well, we have an account of the
We have an
agony of the
account.
garden.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
have what Christ says is happening in the
Yeah.
agony of the garden.
Right.
But there's something bigger than those things happening.
Right, because when you, like, for example, in your life, when you receive a cross, right, which
Yes.
you do all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get cross.
That's, you receive something that's suffering, right? Like, then you can enter more deeply into the mystery of Christ in the garden. Because
like how
it's,
Sam keeps smashing his knee into this couch when he walks past.
that's
to
true. Yeah.
Set up the tapestry. Yeah.
It's like, man, like, but like, you could say, well, I actually don't want this suffering.
Yeah.
But if this is what you will, then like I'll accept it, right? And in little ways, like smashing a knee, that sort of seems.
So
opposite.
thinking that you have to accept the suffering is a mystery. Like, I mean, that's a mysterious approach to suffering.
I don't think you're really.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But it's like, as a noun, a mystery.
Yeah.
Like it's something I hold on to and go, I can use that and apply that. I feel like I don't have a working understanding of what a mystery is. Like it's a thing that helps us know God. Is it a door?
No,
with
no,
a
it's not-
picture of
it's-
what's behind it.
And it's not something that helps us know God. It is God, right? Like God is a mystery to us.
Yes.
Right. Like it's like he's something veiled. He's something that we don't know.
Can we go Trinity? Might be an easier.
Yeah. Oh, and we will get to the Trinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like 3 in 1 and
Yeah,
1 in
and
3.
It's a mystery.
And we just go, that's the way it is. You can't reason this one.
That's exactly what it says.
That is what a mystery is. Something that the church says is reality, but that is beyond our capabilities of reason in this life.
I mean, we will get to the Trinity.
closer?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think like that's a principle to hold on to as we go, right? Like, and I think it's something that will become clearer as we go as well.
But that shouldn't be contradictory to our... If we have the two lights of knowing, we have reason and faith, a mystery is something that might seem, by the light of reason, to be impossible. Things cannot be 3 and 1 simultaneously. A is A, to be Ayn Rand about it.
Sure.
Or whoever she's channeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it seems like a contradiction, but that is meant to teach us what the limits to our understanding of reason, that our reason is dim.
Yeah, I mean, Chesterton would say, like, it's, he's the prince of the paradox sort of thing. Like, he would say, like, if you look at the symbols of, like, world religions, like, the Buddhist symbol is the yin yang, right? Like, it's the circle that never ends.
Yes.
Whereas the thing about Christianity is the symbol is the cross, right? Like, it's where 2 points meet and seem to diverge, right? But they still maintain a unity,
Yes.
right? Like, and he's like, there's something quite powerful.
Two lines.
Yeah, there's something quite powerful about the fact that it's like, it's a collision, like it's a collision between.
Yeah, that's
things.
great. It's a 0
Yeah.
on the Cartesian plane.
Yeah, but also infinitely extends,
Yes.
Anyway, so.
But it infinitely extends a bit longer at the bottom for his legs.
Yeah, that's right. All right, next question. Let's keep cracking on.
Well, that's the end of chapter 1.
That's the end of chapter 1.
Let's move on to chapter 2.
Yeah.
All right. Chapter 2. And Sam, do you want to... Maybe... I don't know how long a good episode is. But maybe after... maybe the endings will suggest themselves. But
Yeah.
I think... And then we'll just hit it later. But, all right. God comes to meet man. The revelation of God. What does God reveal to man?
Right, so we've started with man's capacity for God. So we have this God hole in our heart, etc. And now it's God comes to meet man, right? Like we have a capacity for him and now he comes to meet us. So what does God reveal to man? God in his goodness and wisdom reveals himself. With deeds and words, he reveals himself in his plan of loving goodness, which he decreed from all eternity in Christ. According to this plan, all people by the grace of the Holy Spirit are to share in the divine life as adopted sons in the only begotten Son of God. So that's quite crucial because like when people sort of think about like, oh, what is Christianity? It's like, it's nice, like it's about love.
Yeah,
It's
God
about
is love.
being nice to each other and like, be nice to your
Kind.
neighbor. Like, oh, you give money to the poor every now and again. Like, that's all true. Like, those are all things that are part of it. But actually, the heart of Christianity is, what does Christ come to tell us, and what is the Old Testament telling us? It's telling us about God, right? Like,
Well, this is why the Old Testament is dismissed, by, like, people don't think about it and they find it uncomfortable. Because within the thing of, Christianity is about Jesus coming to give you a hug and, he's got his arms out and he's embracing you. There's all this stuff about, like, killing all the firstborns.
sure, yeah.
Say shibboleth or we will kill you in the river. So it's not quite,
Yeah, I'm not going to do a whole exegesis on the Old Testament here, but, like, it is
we can have fun.
Ultimately that the point of the Old Testament is to reveal something about God, right? Like, because that's what everything is.
God is in the process of revealing himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. I
I've
think
made
we
that
should.
sound not great, but
I think we should move.
you want to move on?
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, I think we can. I think we actually have covered everything else in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I don't want to slow down. What are the first stages of God's revelation?
Well, James, from the very beginning, God manifested himself to our first parents, Adam and
Is
Eve.
this why you wanted to move on? Because we were immediately about to cover it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think one of the good things about this catechism is this happens a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
The
there's
question you have?
a question is asked, you go, but what about this? And it's like, wait for the next question, right? Like, because it does follow this, like, very logical, very natural way of going
Thinking,
through
yeah.
things. Yeah. So from the very beginning, God manifested himself to our first parents, Adam and Eve, and invited them to intimate communion with himself. After their fall, he did not cease his revelation to them, but promised salvation for all their descendants. After the flood, he made a covenant with Noah, a covenant between himself and all living beings. So the first stage of God's revelation, essentially what it's saying here is the Old Testament, right? Like everything that happens in the Old Testament. But specifically, it starts with the fall, right? Like, so we're establishing the relationship that we have with God now, right? Like, we have a fallen relationship with God. There's something wrong with our relationship with God. It's not coming from God's end, right? Like, it's coming from our end.
But I don't know. I want to emphasize. So this is 54 to 58 and 70 to 71. So it's covering a lot in the big version.
Yeah.
But something like promise salvation for all their descendants. The phrasing of that makes it sound like everybody ever is saved.
He promises the opportunity for salvation to all the descendants.
Right, but that, which is different to saying.
Yeah, but
salvation.
because Adam and Eve fell, right?
Yes.
This is the condition of human nature, is that we start out in not a good spot.
This is our answer as to why we have why we're broken, why there's a God.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we had it, and it's gone.
Yeah, and so again, Chesterton, I'm going to use him a lot. He says, the most obvious point of Christian doctrine is original sin. It's the only one you can just prove by, like, pointing at people.
We suck.
Like, yeah, look at that guy. Have you seen that guy? Like, have you seen me? Like, I'm the worst.
I'm fat.
Yeah.
That was me being Chesterton, not me being.
I'm bald, you're fat.
I put on a different shirt to seem slimmer on this episode. Is it working?
It's working.
Thank you.
James, yeah.
So God manifested himself to our first parents. I mean, he was with them there.
He's in the garden.
Manifested
He's in the garden with them, right? Like,
And he invited them to intimate communion with himself. They had a relationship. They were
Yep.
together. They fell away from that.
Yes.
They broke that. But he continued his revelation. So they did not cease his revelation to them, but promised salvation for all their descendants. So revelation is a process of revealing.
yeah, exactly.
So we're saying there that, we know him better after the fall?
Right, good question. So the type of relationship that Adam and Eve have with God before the fall is a very particular type of relationship that we do not have because of the fall, right? Like, so because they have...
We have to have a reconstructed relationship.
Right, and so, like, we would say, like, in the Easter Mass, you say, "Oh, happy fault," right? That led to us have such a great and glorious Redeemer in Christ. Like, we have something better now with the new covenant than even Adam and Eve had, but they had a very specific relationship with God, which they did lose. And that relationship with God is evident in Genesis. It's like Adam and Eve in the garden, walking around, talking to God face to face. Later on, in the Old Testament, you get, like, Moses, who has a type of relationship with God, which is a friendship, right? Like, Moses goes up the mountain and he speaks with God intimately as a friend.
He can't look at him.
But he can't look at him. And God says, "I'm going to come past you, but you can't see me face to face because you'll die," right?
Yeah.
Because of your state. So I'm going to turn you around and pass you. But then he promises to Moses, one will come after you, right? Like another prophet who will have that relationship again. And who will restore that for you, right? And that's Christ. It's like the only person that can do it. The only person that can fix that bridge
Is him.
Is him.
By him, capital H-M.
Yeah, yeah.
That God has to be the prophet.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's a...
Yeah.
I don't want to...
No, sure.
Okay.
It's going to get weird. It's going to get weird.
It's going to get weird. But
yeah.
God tells Adam and Eve in the garden, there's that tree.
Don't eat it.
Don't eat it. They eat it. Now...
Why did they do that for?
Well, it seems like they're being set up to fail. I have children. I don't leave knives within their reach if I can help it.
Yeah.
Judas is brought into the fold with
Yeah.
Christ. you
Sure,
know, and
yeah.
Christ, maybe not in these words, but he's sort of saying, hey, everybody, why would you betray this guy? But gets the betrayer and brings him in to betray him.
Right, sure.
Like, we can't have Christ on the cross without the betrayal, without sin, without wanting him, without, putting him on the cross.
Yeah.
He's not going to put himself on the cross.
Sure.
He doesn't want to do it. He's not going to push the nail into his own hand.
Yeah.
Even though miraculously, if he really wanted to, he could. So if this is all part of God's plan,
Yeah.
our rebelling,
Yeah.
our not living up to God's plan,
Sure.
seems to be a part of that plan.
Yeah, I think we'll deal with this more when we do providence, which is a bit later.
Okay.
Right? Like, what does God know? What do we know? All that sort of stuff. And it's it's obviously like a difficult thing that a lot of people find very confronting.
I like it because it makes sense of the heightened state of terror and joy
Sure.
that is in my life, right?
Yeah.
But I think as far as religions go, Christianity is quite weird because it's saying, what have we had so far in like fairly dry academic language
Yeah.
and nuanced language?
Yeah.
You're broken.
Yeah.
There's infinite goodness and mercy and beauty out there, and it intends for you
To not be
in
broken.
some way.
Yeah, yeah.
He wants you not to be broken, and within his magnificent plan, he's going to make sure that you are broken.
No, he's allowed you to be broken. Yeah. He permits, but does not do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So it's okay. So like the garden story, right? To very briefly get to it. Yeah. I don't think it's not like God is not leaving like a scungy knife on the kitchen table and being like, it's up to your freedom, right? Because also Adam and Eve are not children, right? They actually have the fullness of the divine vision.
Yes.
Right? And that's the mystery of the fall is like, how could they do that when they have that relationship with God?
But also, they didn't have original sin until then.
Yeah, exactly.
But clearly
Yeah.
they fell.
Right, which is why we introduce the other character, right? Which is like, there is an enemy, right? Like there is. Like, this is not some sort of like wishy-washy, like, oh, well, like...
There's a snake and he's out to get you.
There's Satan in all of our hearts, like... No, like there are forces at play here that, ultimate mystery. All we know really is that the fall happened.
Yeah.
We call our first parents Adam and Eve, these sorts of things. I'm probably straying into sort of what people would describe as modernism here. But the things that we know for sure are like Adam and Eve fell. There was a part of that was because of the intervention of the enemy, right? Like they had a good relationship with God. We love God. We believe him when he tells us this.
Yes.
And we also believe that Christ comes to restore that relationship. Mm-hmm. And that the victory is won, right? Like we just have to choose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The serpent's head has been crushed under the foot of the offspring. Yeah. On you, Mary. Is she standing on the snake in that one? She is.
She is,
She is.
baby.
Look.
Yeah.
Look. And is that an apple by the snake's mouth?
Can we zoom in on
Can we
that?
get a zoom on Mary? I believe she is standing on the snake with an apple by the snake. She's stomping him down, crushing his skull. But Satan is also part of God's plan. That this all good, all loving, all perfect God creates with knowledge, which we'll get to. I know it's in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Creates the accuser,
Yeah.
Lucifer,
Sure.
who also has a fall. Has a fall before the fall.
Yeah, yeah. We are going to pretty quickly get into angelology and demonology, quite quickly, I think. So I'm going
Is that hit up soon? All right, push me on. Push me on.
Yeah. We're going to keep going. All right. So sorry, you go. You ask the question. No, question 8.
All right. I have to deflate made a covenant with Noah. So this is Old Testament summary.
That's Old Testament, and now we're Moving on.
to the latter part of the Old Testament,
Yeah.
the Newer Testament, but not quite, the Middle Testament. What are the next stages of God's revelation?
So God chose Abraham, who becomes Abraham, calling him out of his country, making him the father of a multitude of nations, and promising to bless him, in him all the nations of the earth. The people descended from Abraham would be the trustee of the divine promise made to the patriarchs. God formed Israel as his chosen people, freeing them from slavery in Egypt, establishing with them the covenant on Mount Sinai, and through Moses giving them his law. The prophets proclaimed a radical redemption of the people and a salvation which would include all nations in a new and everlasting covenant. From the people of Israel and from the house of King David would be born the Messiah, Jesus.
Gee, it's interesting to break down the entire Old Testament into 2 paragraphs there.
And they do it.
I mean, I feel like we should probably do... There's a lot of good things out there about the Old Testament. Like, you know,
Like
there's
the
a
Old
lot-
Testament? Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can just read the Old Testament, but seems very evangelical of you to recommend that anybody do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, a couple of things about, like, so what's this part describing is describing the sort of, like, main stages of God's revelation in the Old Testament, which is, okay, so he covenant, first of all, with Abraham, then with Moses, and then you
By
have...
covenant, a deal, a contract.
It's a contract, basically. Yeah. So it's like, I'll do this for you if you do this for me, right? You give me true worship,
Yes,
and I will give you
true worship
the
that they
freedom.
don't live out at all.
They fail constantly, yeah. Which
The
is why
golden calf
you have the prophets, right? Like the prophets
Okay.
come to
call us back.
yeah.
But again, it's repeated failing.
Yeah.
Here's something you need to live up to now, and not doing it.
It's the only way that I would be a Christian is if like it's because that's my life, man. That's
Yeah,
like
no,
like oh man, I'm
seems
glad
an
it's not
apt
full of
description of
perfect
how it
people.
is.
Yeah.
But what do we turn to religion for, other than to like make peace of our lives and to make us better people?
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, if you follow that, Buddhism says, here's enlightenment. I can give it to you. Now, I've never met anyone who's managed to pull that off, but that's not to say it's not theoretically out there. Well, you know, Islam, submission is peace.
Mm.
And I'm watching a Muslim podcast at the moment. They keep talking about how if you become a Muslim, it'll chill you out because we've got this sorted.
Sure.
And you might say that the claim of Christianity, which is like pretty permanent, and Judaism, our Judeo-Christian faith, like you won't be living up to it.
Yeah.
You won't be doing a good
Yeah.
job here.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep failing.
Yeah.
Is maybe a very good cover for a bad religion.
What do you mean a bad religion?
Well, if I told you that I had made you a very special pair of trousers that would be itchy all the time, but that this was an excellent quality of the itchy trousers, you know?
But are they good trousers?
I'm telling you that they're good trousers. I'm telling you they're the best trousers
Right, but
out
like,
there.
but
And
you're-
that the smoothness of other trousers is
right.
sort of a lie.
Again, so this is not making an argument, right? This is not an argument. This is not like out to convince you of anything. It's just saying like this is the truth. You could be like, oh, this is just a cover for something, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, what's it a cover for? Cover for how shit we are? Like, it's not a very good one. Like, it's like you're pretty shit. You can't do it. You need God.
Yeah.
Don't worry, He's done it all for you. Because that's how bad you are at everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's like, well, if that's the sell, it's like, well, I'm sold. You know, like I am terrible. Like I'm terrible at everything.
And if they were telling you were good and you were going to be relaxed, you wouldn't.
Oh
believe
man,
that.
you're gonna be
Yeah,
great. Don't worry, we're gonna give you heaps of money. Like if you just do this, like God will sort your life out. That's also like nowhere in here, right? Like you're not gonna get like
once again, we return to where we may have moved away from some of the Protestants.
yeah, that's right.
Not all
Yeah,
the Protestants, but
yeah. Like there's no like your promise is heaven, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you get to heaven by being crucified, right? Like that's a distinct possibility when you accept Christianity. Is like you will suffer, right? Like you're accepting the cross. Doesn't make your life. It may, and I hope that it does. But like that's not why you're doing it
I said
necessarily.
it may put me on the cross.
No, it makes your life better.
Yeah.
But that's not why you're doing it,
No.
right? If you're doing
You're
it,
doing it because you think it's true.
yeah, exactly. If you're doing it because you're like, oh, I might gain advantage from something here, then it's like, all
Good
right,
luck. Hope so.
yeah, sure. I'm not sure that's happening now. I'm not sure a lot of people are choosing it for that reason now.
I'm so poor.
Aren't we both?
All right. Love. All right. No, I think that's an interesting point to make about what the Catechism is that it isn't a dialectic, and but to experience it and to read it, there are things that even now I bristle and I go, it seems like an oversimplification. This is one of the reasons that I like.
Well, it is an oversimplification.
I know, because there's a big long boy over here, but it's one of the things I like, and I'm open about this. It's what I like about the Latin Mass is that there are some things that strike me as silly sometimes in certain moods. Sometimes it's like great, and I could very happily have the whole thing in English, and my faith is good, big, and welcoming. And sometimes I'll be at Anglican ordinariate or and someone, God, you are so fabulous and so loved.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll think, it seems dumb. Like when you say it like that, God, you are so big and so magnificent.
Yeah.
And I go, first of all, why are we saying it like that?
Yeah.
Secondly,
If you're going to say it like that, say it in a language that I don't understand.
well, it makes it a bit easier to like go, this is beautiful. I'm not picking up every word here.
Yeah.
Like there's and when I want to pick up every word and pay attention and engage, it's great.
You can enter more deeply.
I can enter more deeply.
Yeah.
But I'm also, there's nothing there that I'm finding in my weakened state where I'm struggling, I'm just trying to keep showing up.
Yeah.
That I'm not alienated from.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so I like that they're going, here's the faith.
Yeah.
When you're ready, you can have it.
Yeah.
I've got the answers for you.
Yeah.
But that I think this is why it's good to do this in conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Because it's good to have it out, you know?
Yeah.
And to be doing it again now after all these years, to have different problems.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to be talked about, right? Like that's why I don't like the Baltimore Catechism as a way of learning for like an adult who has questions, right? Because it's like, it's not that it's bad. It's just like very simple, like, who is God? God is the creator saint of the universe. Who is man? Man is created by, it's just like
it doesn't give you a huge amount to wrestle with.
No, exactly. And there's so much to wrestle with, right? Like,
this is what I liked about that Jordan Peterson show, which I think he's writing a book on this. Man's so close.
Right.
Man's so close.
Yeah.
But he's writing
JP, if you're listening.
JP3.
Yeah.
Who knows what?
Who knows? One day.
But he talks about Israel meaning the one who wrestles with God, the one who contends with God.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, God is there to be for, like, where it is a battle.
Yeah.
And he's God, right? He's right. But the relationship that we have been made for is not one of submission.
Yeah.
It's of struggle.
Yeah.
And it's of where does our reason clash with what we're being told by faith? How can that struggle not cancel itself out and go, obviously this is retarded.
Yeah.
But where can I be made better and stronger?
Yeah.
Where can my reason be more nuanced and more correct?
Yeah.
How can I understand faith in a more meaningful way?
Yeah, you're supposed to flourish, right? Like you're supposed to be truly who you are.
But it's meant to be. It's not natural.
That's not
it's
easy.
Hard to,
It's
hard to do.
Yeah, sure. Like anyone who's tried to do
I won't say it's not natural.
anything
I'll say
worthwhile.
It don't come easy.
Yeah. Anyone who's tried to do anything worthwhile, it's hard, right? Like, to quit smoking or to, whatever. Exercise, right? Start exercising. So it's the worst.
Let's move it from one for you to one to me. Is that what's okay? Fine.
Hey, I don't exercise. But Christ said, I come to call you friends, right? Like, and that's the difference between the relationship that we have with Christ versus the relationship that a Muslim has with Allah, which is
not
like
one of easygoing.
It's one of submission. It's not one of like
back and forth.
Fraternity, right? Like we have a fraternity with God now, right? We have an intimate relationship with God.
Yeah.
And we're his adopted children.
And when you have a friendship, there are apologies. There are.
He's a much better friend than we are. Yeah.
And once again, I apologize for some of the things I said to you last night. And
it wasn't that bad.
But that's I was thinking about. There's a bit in. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
you're almost certainly wrong.
I'm often wrong. But I was listening to someone talking about this, and I may well be wrong.
Yeah.
But that there's an account in the Gospels of Mary talking with God. We're talking with Gabriel.
Yep.
And giving consent to becoming the mother of God.
I mean, that's a weird PC way to put it, but yeah, sure.
God,
yeah. That's a frame by which you could read it.
That she has, I'll put it this way, she has the option of saying,
yeah, No.
I wouldn't want that. But
Yeah.
she affirms. She says, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. That her willingness to participate,
Yeah.
it's put into her mouth.
Yeah.
We hear a woman speak
Yeah.
and say, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Thy will be done.
Yeah.
And then in Islam, the same story in the Quran is recounted, is my understanding.
I
And it's
haven't
put
read
to-
it.
I believe it's
Yeah.
then put into the mouth of God. Like, this will be happening to you.
Yeah.
By my will, it'd be done to you. Because it would be unseemly in that conception of God that God would need or desire your point of view.
Well, if any Muslims are watching this, that we may be wrong.
May
I
be
don't-
wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
That was my understanding, and I'd love to hear about how I'm wrong.
yeah. I've got no clue.
But, I mean, I'm sure at some point there is some difference between, even if they are the same God, and
Yeah.
we're worshipping the same God and
Sure.
all that good stuff, I'm sure there are some differences between how we think about God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots.
I feel that might be one of them.
I am not a Muslim, so...
You keep that beard going, though, and you could have the look.
all right, let's move on. Let's
right.
move on. Yeah.
Where are we up to?
Number 9.
What is the full and definitive stage of God's revelation?
Such an important point. The full and definitive stage of God's revelation is accomplished in his word made flesh, Jesus Christ, the mediator and fullness of revelation. He, being the only begotten Son of God, made man, is the perfect and definitive word of the Father. In the sending of the Son and the gift of the Spirit, revelation is now fully complete, although the faith of the church must gradually grasp its full significance over the course of centuries. So this is like, there are sort of things that are like principles for Catholic thought.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, the first one that we're coming to, right? A principle of Catholic thought is that revelation is finished, right? There is no new revelation. People get confused about
Want to
this
have a
all
chat
the time.
about purgatory?
No? We'll get to purgatory later.
All right, no, but
Yeah.
there's definitely stuff. We have finished revelation,
Yeah.
but there's stuff that's like that the Catholics have that other people don't have, who've also.
Although
been
the faith
for a
that
long time.
faith of the church must gradually grasp the church must gradually grasp its full significance over the course of the century. So, for example, yeah, right, like the Pope and church councils make like declarations about the faith.
Yes.
It like past the first century, right? Like in fact, right up to the 20th century.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, well, we're not finished like unpacking and understanding it, but like what I'm saying is like there is no like, oh, I come to you and I say, James, I had a vision of Christ, and actually he wants all men to wear turbans now, right? Like, and if you don't wear a turban, you're going to hell. It's like, no, actually, that's the next question, which is what is the value of private revelation? So that's a private revelation is where you have like God gives you a message,
Yeah.
like you should pray the rosary every day or something,
It's going to bring up the rosary.
right? Which is fine, right? And the church can approve or disapprove of
But
these
there were
private
people
revelations.
before the rosary who were just as saved.
But these private revelations that might happen after Christ has gone back to heaven,
Yes.
can add nothing to what has already been given to us. So if there's something new to it, that's one of the conditions in which the church would say this is not a legitimate private revelation.
But if it's a way of better understanding the original one.
Yeah, or a way of like the rosaries are perfectly acceptable because it's just like, oh, say some prayers and it's not going to hurt, like.
So when St. Paul is told, has the vision after Christ is risen of, the kill and eat.
Yeah.
Like, eat whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a private revelation.
Well, and we're going to get to this further down. So
Should we keep
the
going?
church says revelation is complete
Yeah.
when the last apostle dies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Christ and the Holy Spirit impart knowledge to the apostles, right? So, like for example, after Christ rises,
This is
from
after John dies? Is
yeah,
John the last
exactly.
one? Okay.
John's the last one. So after Christ comes back from the dead, and he has 40 days with the apostles, and he tells them many things, right?
Yeah.
And that also they spend years with him in his life.
Yeah.
So it's like they know stuff, right? They've got first-hand knowledge. Like
So
they have
things
been.
that Polycarp has written down while John's still alive are fine?
So, for example, anything in the Bible,
Yeah.
right, is not past the apostolic age. Everything in the Bible is written in that first generation.
Yes.
And so that's why we say that's revelation, right?
Yep.
That is part of revelation. This is, we can be sure.
Literally, the last book is Revelation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's John.
Yeah.
So we'll get the next thing is the transmission of divine revelation. But we should do private revelation
Well,
first.
no, but here's what it also like. So, how long have we been going?
40 minutes of this.
I think because that
Let's
is
do
all of
private
the
revelation.
of God.
Let's do private revelation and then we'll finish.
All right.
Yeah, because that's the last bit. Yeah. So
Oh, so there is
Yeah, yeah.
another one. I
Yeah,
didn't say
yeah.
that was there. All right. Can I just read this? This is the quote they give from St. John of the
yeah,
Cross.
sure.
In giving us his son, His only and definitive word. God spoke everything to us at once in this sole word, and he has no more to say. St. John of the Cross.
Yeah. In the
That's a
beginning,
different St. John.
St. John of the Cross is different St. John. Yeah, 16th century Carmelite. Yep.
So in the beginning.
So in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God. This is John chapter 1. So the Word, the second person of the Trinity, so Jesus Christ, he is the full and definitive revelation of the Father. This is God's self-expression, right? Like, so when we're speaking to each other, what are we doing? We're revealing who we are, right? Like, we're revealing the things that are in our minds, in our hearts, and our souls.
Yes.
God has spoken to us, and that word that he has spoken has become a person
Yes.
who is God as
Yep.
well. And that's it, right? Like, so that's
And
God's
now-
self-expression.
And then he goes into the sky.
Yeah, and the Holy Spirit comes, and we've got him through baptism.
But the Holy Spirit is not the word.
No, but he is also part of God.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. Yeah.
But that something shifted
Yeah.
when Christ, having risen, left.
For us, yes.
Went to heaven.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That we're in a different phase of time.
Yeah, we're in a different phase of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. I think that was good.
We haven't done private revelation.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah, private
What is
revelation.
the value of private revelation?
Well, James, let me tell you, while not belonging to the deposit of faith, which means things that we all have to believe,
Yes.
private revelations may help a person to live the faith as long as they lead us to Christ.
Okay.
The magisterium of the church, which has the duty of evaluating such private revelations, cannot accept those which claim to surpass or correct that definitive revelation, which is Christ.
So if something comes along which is
New. Right?
that contradicts the old,
Mm.
because to say new, I mean there are new things that are new. Like we didn't have.
Yeah, but if it's
the
like,
physical
oh,
form of the
Mary is the
rosary.
fourth person in the Trinity, right?
Right.
Like, it's like, nope. Like, that's done, right? Like, we've settled that one.
We know what the Trinity is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So, but like, so for example, like, the controversial one is like Fatima, right? Like, but again, like, what does Mary say at Fatima? She's just like, pray the rosary, like that. And that's for the approved
It
revelations.
doesn't. Yes.
It's always just like, pray the rosary.
like
like,
unapproved.
be good, avoid sin.
Revelations.
There are lots of unapproved revelations, and they're normally quite wacky, right? And then when you read into them, you're like, oh,
I've
that's
had a couple that I'd like to talk about when we're off camera.
exactly. I've unfortunately to say, James, I'm sure that yours aren't going to be approved.
Not under this Pope. But the important thing, no, I think that's well, we can get more into private revelation, and I think this will come up more
Yeah.
as we go through it. But basically, that we have the faith,
Yes.
we have the Gospels,
Yeah.
we have the church,
And we will
and
get
that there's
to
not going to be
yeah.
an extra Messiah who
No.
comes along and goes. So that we have had revelation
It's
through
done.
stages,
Yeah.
and it's now finished.
Yep. And we're going to talk next time about specifically what that revelation is, what it looks like, what its structure is, all that sort of stuff. Yep.
Okay. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this episode of whatever this show ends up being called. I think it's probably called the Catechast.
Catechast, baby.
How we'll spell that, I'm not sure. God bless. Keep it real. We'll do another one soon.